delegation and New York City officials as well. These are familiar faces now to many of you, and should be, given how much focus has been on the city, this small area, really, a relatively small area of New York City, but how important it is to the city, how symbolic it is about the country. Wall Street, which will open again on Monday at 9:30 after being closed since Tuesday morning, the longest such closure ever. We expect the president to, well, before I do that, if Kelly Wallace up on the roof is still able to hear me. Kelly, I hope you were able to see that in your monitor. I know what that monitor is like up there. Have you ever seen anything like that before?
I have never seen anything like it. As I watched and listened with you, I was just thinking, what an extraordinary moment. There, the president, as you noted, holding a bullhorn, and the chanting, USA, USA, don't let him get away with it. You know, Aaron, we've been reporting that many people hope the president coming here would be sort of a morale booster for these firefighters and these search and rescue teams. Clearly, it appears that that is exactly what happened. It probably, though, Aaron, was a bit of a morale booster for this president, who is obviously facing the most difficult challenge of his only 9-month-old presidency, and that is, of course, balancing an absolute tragedy, trying to comfort the nation, as well as focusing on the investigation and trying to make the difficult decisions about next steps, military options, working with the international community, in his words, to whip out terrorism. So this likely to be a very memorable experience for the president. And Aaron, as we've all been reporting, one of really the most incredible stories here, and certainly one of the toughest is the stories of all those firefighters and police officers who were going into those buildings as all the people working in those buildings were coming down. I know I was on Tuesday not too far from the buildings talking to people who got out, and many people saying that they remember coming down the stairs and firefighters, many very young firefighters going up, and people would cheer. And of course, many people very, very upset because many of those same firefighters are now some of the missing. And the president even talking about that in his speech earlier at the prayer service. Aaron, you heard that when he said, talking about all the names that we're learning, and he said they are the names of rescuers, the ones whom death found running up the stairs and into the fires to help others. And obviously many of those firefighters and rescue workers out there certainly concerned about their colleagues and comrades. So obviously a very important moment for those firefighters and rescue workers. Obviously an important moment for the president too. Aaron?
Yeah. I was thinking about the president's morale as you were. Presidents, as you and Judy both know, you've covered them, live in a kind of bubble, and it must have been good for him. Judy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I read I think it was a New York Times this morning, someone who saw those firefighters going up the stairs at the Trade Center as he was coming down, and thinking later it was a ladder to heaven. That phrase has stuck in my mind. And just, again, thinking about the people, the president getting a boost, in a way, if you will, from meeting with these people. I don't think we can underestimate how important it is to those people on the ground working so hard to see the President of the United States coming in their midst, if only for a few minutes or an hour or half an hour, whatever it is, to shake their hands, to congratulate them, just to do a thumbs up. It must be just an extraordinary provide an extraordinary lift for them to have him there.
Well, meeting a president under any circumstance is not routine. And meeting a president or seeing the president in this circumstance must be something else. It must be something. And goodness knows, these men and women down there have been working long and difficult, and today very uncomfortable days. And any morale boost they can get, much appreciated. Richard Roth has been down there as this group moves through. Richard?
Yes, Aaron. Normally I'm at the United Nations. I guess I'm struck by the fact that here we are again in a year ending in 2001, and a Bush in the White House, and the talk, the rhetoric, the language from the National Prayer Service in Washington, and some of the rallying around the flag that we and you saw just now. Certainly very similar to the Persian Gulf War and his father's conflict, when President Bush says this conflict was begun on the times and terms of others and will end, in a way, at an hour of our choosing. He's certainly setting the table for some form of military action to come, and certainly the firefighters and the rescue workers who are feverishly clawing through the rubble will back him to the hilt. There's been 10,000 tons of rubble already removed, a lot more still left there, some of which the president was standing on.
The president.
No, Aaron.
Go ahead, Judy. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, listening to Richard, I'm reminded I was talking earlier today at the cathedral prayer service with Franklin Graham, the son of Billy Graham, and he was saying he thinks the American people are ready for what comes next. We were talking about how in the last 50 years, nothing has really brought the nation together and made people prepared to make what will be some sort of sacrifice in the days, weeks, and months to come. But this is different.
Well, yeah, I mean, say what you will about what went on around the Gulf War, and it was important and it mattered. It was, I think, for many people in the country, they felt it was something the country had to do to engage the Iraqis. There was an economic threat and somewhat of a political threat, I suppose. But this has been a smack in the side of the head of the country, and that's wholly different, it seems to me, in the way people are reacting to it. This is, I mean, I was on the street yesterday. I thought people, I've taken this personally. This is like personal business now. That's a very different feeling to me, as I see it, from the one when the president's father was trying to marshal forces against Iraq.
I think we feel violated as a nation. You know, people talk about feeling violated if they've been mugged or if their house has been broken into or something on a small scale. Of course, it's important to you if it happens to you, but I think our country feels and has been violated, and everyone does take it personally.
And when you hear the reporting of Jeff Flock in Dubuque and in Wisconsin yesterday, other correspondents in other parts of the country, you become aware that it's not just those of us here in New York or in Washington who have this sense of being violated. This wasn't an attack on New York and Washington. This is an attack on the United States, on institutions of the United States. And I think people have, in fact, taken it quite personally. If you continue to look at the bulldozers working the area, the president, it is not, I'll confess here, not clear to me whether he has moved on. We expect him to go to one more location, perhaps to meet with some of those. He has now met with some of the rescue workers, perhaps to meet with some of those sad and desperate people who are seeking their loved ones. We have at various times visited the Armory in New York, which has been set up to deal with the friends and family of the missing. Just a bit ago, the president holding the bullhorn in the center of the picture and addressing the rescue workers, firemen from all over the area, not just New York City, but from all over the area. At one point, they said, "We can't hear you," and he said, "I can hear you." And they were chanting, "USA, USA." There are hundreds of workers down there, and in that area, obviously everything came to a stop for a while. It's just a remarkable, even as grainy, this was shot, I suspect, from quite a distance, as grainy as that is, and we'll get a much clearer picture, and you will see still pictures very soon of this too. As grainy as it is still quite remarkable. It's something
Aaron,
to see. Yeah.
I was watching this, and you know, we're talking about how much this means to the rescue crews and the people involved in this recovery. I had a couple of phone calls Wednesday night from people in New York saying, "Where is the president? We know, a lot of us didn't vote for him, but we need his presence here, and it's almost as if the White House was listening, because it was Wednesday, or Thursday,
Yeah.
rather, yesterday, that the
And
White
there, I
House
think-
announced the president would go.
Sorry, I mean to interrupt. I think there's your morning picture right there. The president waving an small American flag in the center of that group of people. What a shot that will be.
Yeah. This is grainy, we should explain, because the light is poor in there. I think that's what's going on.
Yeah, it is almost 5 o'clock here on a very dreary day in New York. As we were saying, it is possible the president will meet with some of the people whose loved ones are missing. Elizabeth Cohen has been at the Armory talking to those people for the last couple of days. It is a difficult and sad place, Elizabeth.
It is a dreary day in New York. It is an especially dreary day here on the corner of 26th and Lexington, where families come in. They are ushered into the Armory to give details about their missing loved ones. They're asked everything: their hair color, their eye color, 7 pages worth of details, and then they are shown 2 lists. One is a list of people who are still in the hospital, and one is a list of people who have been found deceased. But people here on the street corner, despite the dreariness, still have hope. We're going to talk to one of those people right now. Ricky Fortini is looking for his friend Bruce Gary, who is a fireman and was one of the first on the scene called to the World Trade Center. Who saw him last?
One of the members at the firehouse has seen him last, and that was pretty much the end of it. He's still missing. He has 3 children at home that are anxiously waiting for his return, and the hope doesn't stop.
What do you hope will happen when you walk around, you show this picture? I'm sure you're hanging up posters.
Well, hopefully he might be in a medical center. He could be in various different areas that, maybe another member saw, another department member has seen. There's just so many things that can happen.
Tell me about him. We can look at the picture. We can see what he looks like on the outside. Tell me about him on the inside.
He's a great loving dad, has 3 fantastic kids. He's a single father, and he did whatever he could for his kids.
Now, you, sir, when you heard about the explosions, you were telling me your first instinct. What was your first instinct?
Our friend and myself, our first instinct was to get to ground zero, which we did about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. We were really the only, I guess, civilians you could say that were there on site, assisting the fire department, any type of staff that was there, whatever we could do.
Were you able to do anything to dig through rubble at all?
Sure. We were moving debris. We were helping the firemen carry hoses, and a various amount of tasks.
Now, you still, if you turn, you can see that you still have dust here. You were back there today.
That's a lot of the insulation that was laying all over the ground still and being blown up by the wind. Although the rain has succumbed that was most of the dust that was there.
Thank you. Thank you. Aaron, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of stories like this. People who not only are looking for their loved ones, but are trying to help out everyone in this situation at the same time. It would be impossible for me to describe every little story that I've heard of people helping. For example, yesterday there was a vice president of a technology firm who came down here, set up a scanner at the restaurant that I'm standing in front of, and people just came in and he scanned their photos so that they could put them on websites. A girl, she must have been 12 years old, was walking around and offering people peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that she had made, offering journalists, offering people who were looking for family members. Another woman, she went to a hardware store and said they need masks, not the hospital kind, but the real gas mask kind downtown. Can you give me some? They just gave them to her for free, and she ran them down there. There are so many stories like this during this dreary day here in New York. Aaron?
Elizabeth, I think I said to you yesterday at some point that in watching your work down there, listening to the people, one realizes that tragedy is a great equalizer, that in that mix of people there are the families of investment bankers and window washers. You talked to one yesterday, maintenance people, firemen and women. Tragedy knows no distinction in that way. It just affects people. And I think it's one of the things that makes it all so difficult right now. Uh,